Well, this came out of nowhere. SNK Gals Fighters is on the Nintendo Switch, an old Neo Geo Pocket Color game. Does it hold up to this day? Let's take a look. Gals Fighters, or to be more correct, it's Gals' Fighters, which is far too plural and possessive for my brain to comprehend what on earth they mean, but it's a fighting game starring the ladies of SNK way before SNK Heroines was even a twinkle in the company's eye. This is the OG SNK Heroines, and you know what? It's a bloody lovely little fighter. As a fighter, one developed for a portable system back in the year 2000, you won't be surprised to hear that the story of Gals Fighters isn't exactly at the forefront of the experience. Delving into the digital manual, you can get a brief premise. All the ladies in the King of Fighters universe are invited to take part in the Queen of Fighters competition in order to win a talisman which will grant to them one wish of anything they please. Yes, that's it. Each lady has their own goal in mind, and you don't really get anything in terms of character aside from a handful of between-match battle cries and then a very brief ending, usually comical in nature. I wish the endings had a bit more meat to them aside from talking over black screens and then one final still image, but it is what it is. This is a 1v1 fighter built for a 16-bit handheld system, and while that system was a bit of a beast for its time, even to this day, when the two words fighters and handheld are combined in the same description of a game, pretty much everyone's reaction will be to immediately suck the air through their teeth with flashbacks of horrific Mortal Kombat ports on the Game Boy and the like. The Neo Geo Pocket Color, combined with SNK's fighting pedigree, however, performed miracles, and the system was home to half a dozen or so very commendable and very playable fighters, and SNK Gals Fighters was one of them. There are 8 characters available from the beginning, with 3 unlockable, depending on if you achieve certain goals or just by playing long enough. None of the characters are secret since you're battling them anyways in the main mode of the game, Queen of Fighters mode. This is your standard arcade mode as you battle your way through half a dozen fights before getting to the end boss and claiming the talisman for yourself. When you look at the Neo Geo Pocket Color and you see that it only has 2 buttons, you can't help but wonder how they could possibly get some variety in your attacks. Well, you need not worry, since Gals Fighters has very competently squeezed a bewildering amount of depth into your character's capabilities with just 2 buttons and a control stick that you can easily access loads of moves and combos and pull them off with ease. Many of the moves involve your standard quarter circle or half circle movement followed by an input, but that doesn't make it predictable since not all the Gals follow the same suit despite having similarities here and there. Yes, you can pick up each of them and fiddle around, easily able to get a grip on a couple of their moves, but you know, they're not cookie cutter. I mean, you can pull off some good looking stuff here. I'm crap at fighters, but even I was seeing some results come together due to the simplicity of the controls and the intuitiveness of the battle flow. I was dodge rolling, pulling off a combo, following up with a special move, and kicking some ass, and it felt good. I mean, it's not revolutionary, of course it's not, but for a handheld console in the year 2000, this would have been eye-popping for fighter fans. Despite the chibi looks, this is very much an SNK fighter, albeit in diminutive form. It has that same feeling. The default difficulty is pretty bang on. I mean, I managed to scave my way through it first time with most of the characters, aside from when I came across Yuki who kept kicking my ass. But wherever your skill level lies, there are 5 levels of difficulty to choose from, as well as 4 levels of speed and how many rounds you want and time. One potentially interesting aspect is the use of items. You can win items from some girls once in a while and equip them before going into fights. However, some items don't do anything, while others don't do much, and I felt it was a wasted opportunity. Saying that, I really disliked how they implemented items in the game's spiritual sequel a couple of years ago, SNK Heroines, so perhaps I should be grateful that they're almost an afterthought here. I like how they've addressed 2-player versus mode in this port. Given to most other developers, I'd have guessed most would have just struck this mode off for the port since, you know, it was a link cable only affair. Too bothersome to implement on a console port? Well, not in Gals Fighters. Hand the Joy-Con to your bud and enjoy some competitive battles with them. In the times when 2 screens are needed, well, the game just pops them side by side. All the fighting is done on one screen, of course. In terms of additions, like you often find in many emulated games these days, this release is pretty barren in terms of gameplay options. The only modifications you can do is to remap the controls, which I can't see being wholly necessary here, and you can also rewind the game if you want to defy destiny. That's really about it. But what you get in this diminutive little package is a nice succinct bit of fun. Of course, when you look at other Switch fighters, you have to ask yourself, what is the point? What is the point of this release? This can't compete with the likes of Dragon Ball FighterZ, Mortal Kombat, or even the arcade port of Garo Mark of the Wolves. But as a curiosity and perhaps as a nice educational showcase for that brief period of time that SNK entered the portable console market, it is a bit of fun. I can't promise it's a game you're going to stick with or go back to time and time again, but you'll definitely play it for a couple of hours and appreciate what it had to offer back during its initial release, and you'll be surprised at how well and playable it is even to this day, even if you probably won't go back to it much. Visually, the game is obviously pretty basic. The original system, the Neo Geo Pocket Color, was basically a Game Boy Color in terms of what it had to offer visually, so the color palette is rather low, which is a pity since I would have loved to see these character sprites fully colored. I'm sure they would have looked amazing. But it is what it is, and the designs themselves are well done, as are the backgrounds despite their lack of color too. The presentation for this port is an interesting one. The default settings have the game zoomed out almost comically small, which is how the game truly looks, sure, but you'll definitely want to access the meta menu and zoom in all the way to, fit the full height of the screen. The border artwork consists of the worrying amount of console color variance the system had, or you can switch it off completely, which is what I did for most of my time playing. There is a dot matrix filter that can be applied, but I felt it was a bit too strong for its own good, although it is more authentic for the nostalgia fiends. The audio is pretty cool, well, at least the music aspect. The chiptunes are excellent and catchy, and as I was writing this review, my game was open in the options menu, listening to the BGMs to sample them without the hectic stress of a battle ensuing. I really like what the music has to offer here. Perhaps they're not going to be remembered after I've stopped playing, but I can appreciate the work that's gone into some of the tracks here. I particularly enjoyed BMG, number 12, 17, and 23. God, I sound like I'm ordering a takeaway here. I'll have an extra portion of BGM number 21, please. I was less impressed with the sound effects, however. I'm sure it's more down to hardware limitations, but I think more oomph to the hits would have been nice. Characters being silent is also oddly disturbing in a fighting game. Usually I'm praying to any god that will listen just to shut up the characters from yelling every millisecond, but I did miss it here. An odd grunt here and there would have been more soothing as the ladies beat the crap out of each other. On the eShop, SNK Gals Fighters is priced at £17, $19 in the UK, and $7.99 in euros and US dollars. When it comes to the category that I like to call totally random retro ports, found on the Switch, this is in the upper echelons of price. I think that's the right kind of price though, especially if you want to support these obscure titles seeing the light of day again. I would love the entire Neo Geo Pocket Color library on the Switch. It's a system that has some absolute belters in its tiny library. But that's a tangent. Monetarily, it's probably not exactly the best bang for your buck. I can't see most people putting in more than a couple of hours into this as a curiosity purchase than anything else, despite it being a very capable fighter for its time, and even to this day. But if you want to tell SNK you want more of this, then handing over the cash is the best way to do so. On a side note, you may remember that pre-ordering the Samurai Showdown reboot for the Switch netted you Samurai Showdown 2, the Neo Geo Pocket version. Well, I do know that that obscure release is getting a standalone physical version at some time in the future, so perhaps this one will too? Pix and Love Publishing are handling Samurai Showdown 2 physical, and they said that they have an announcement to make at the end of May. Maybe I'm wondering it could be this. Don't hold me to that though, my guesses are almost universally wrong. That's why I'm not a betting man. Okay, let's move on to my verdict. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that this review has been somewhat contradictory in places. I've been praising its wonders for the time, the simple but deep gameplay, but I'm also asking the question of just, what is the point? Well, aside from me asking that question about every aspect of my life, I do want to make it clear that Gals Fighters is a fun time, it holds up surprisingly well today, and is a great piece of gaming history that is one of the rare cases where a historical curiosity is still very playable. I mean, you can't say that about Trap. But if we're being real, and if we're being honest, it's not a game you're going to spend a massive amount of time with, even if you do enjoy it like myself. You'll pick this up, battle away for a couple of hours, and probably never play it again. And if you can make your peace with that before you buy, it is a 7 out of 10. but you might as well get Garo if you want a serious fighter, but this one is a nice curiosity. Okay guys, thanks very much to our executive producers Dane Wilkinson and God of Resin, as well as our other YouTube members. We really appreciate your support, and if you want to join them, then there's a link in the description below. Now perhaps head over to watch our review of Pocket Rumble, which is a modern game that was inspired by Neo Geo Pocket Fighters, just like this one. Honestly, it wears its heart on its sleeve so much. Plus we have a lot of other content for you to lap up, such as our Streets of Rage 4 review, if you want to beat the crap out of people in a slightly different way. It's an excellent game, so be sure to give that a watch. We'll see you guys over there. Take care.